video games. You know, I love them. Mostly my content. I do some movies every now and then, but it's mostly video games for me. And this series is half video games, half movies. But if there's any big industry fail or big controversy for video games, it's probably the infamous video game crash of 1983. What is the video game crash of 1983? That's what we're talking about. Hi guys, I'm DPX, and I'm also the in-depth detective. Welcome back to another episode to the show with that same name. Today we look at what led to the video game crash of 1983. But before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to like this video, subscribe if you're new, turn on the notifications, and leave a comment. And you'll be a loyal subscriber. Well, not literally on fire. And not that it's a bad factor, but there was not much competition at that time. There did exist the ColecoVision, Intellivision, and the Odyssey 2, but the competition was almost non-existent as Atari really brought gaming into our homes. And so they were on top of the world pretty much. They brought games like Breakout, Centipede, Pitfall, and especially Space Invaders all to our living rooms. All this eventually led to like I said, Atari were on top of the world, but that ended up being a massive downside. More and more games started getting pumped out at an unbelievably fast rate with little increase in quality. Also keep in mind that this is when video games weren't as big as they are now. So all it took was one terrible game to have the whole industry crash. I'll be talking about two of them. I mean, duh. If you aren't informed about the crash of 1983 and wondering why Pacman is on here, well, that's because expectations were very high, and it was also the first time Pacman ended up on a home console. Pacman was already huge in the arcades, so it sold more units than the Atari console it was on. But when people got it, it was loaded with problems, such as the hit detection and the distracting flicker. Pac-Man, however, was just simply too powerful of a game for the 2600 to handle. The blow with this game, though, was how much the game sold, yet how poor it was. Then there was E.T. Sure, it's probably just an inoffensive game looking at it today, for it to just come out today, but back in 1983, this must have just been too much. Especially since it was only made in 6 weeks. And it's just a weird game as well. We cannot talk about the crash of 1983 without mentioning the Atari Landfill. It was this urban legend that stated that many unsold copies of E.T. and some other games, but most notably E.T., were all thrown in a landfill in New Mexico. This has since been proven to be true, as found out in the 2014 documentary titled Atari Game Over, which documents the crash of 1983 and everything about it. I suggest you give it a watch. After the crash, Video games were still being made, but they weren't big. However, Atari tried to bring it back in 1984 with the Atari 5200, but that console just failed so hard. But then in 1985, something rather phenomenal happened. Nintendo released the NES in North America. It's been out in Japan as the Famicom, but released it in North America and revived the gaming industry. This is mostly because it launched with Gyromite and Stack Up, which came with Rob the Robot, which was marketed as a toy rather than a video game. So more people were interested in it because it was a toy than a video game, and that's how it actually got more people back into video games. Thanks, Nintendo. Anyone who says Nintendo sucks, you gotta tell them that we wouldn't really have video games without them. So that was this episode of the In-Depth Detective. What did you think? I almost forgot the question of the day. Do you think E.T. is really that bad to the point where it should have crashed the gaming industry? Or do you think that the industry at the time was just a little too fragile? Vote in the poll and let me know in the comments which one you picked, and I'll like them. That'll be it for this video. If you like this video, come subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.